Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast, where we empower women to own their power, create influence and impact, and live life unapologetically AF. It's time to leverage your expertise, resources, and relationships to build your business, brand, and badassery. So just click subscribe and let's get it. I'm your host, Kelly Charles Collins. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. Today, my guest is Rebecca Larson. Rebecca is the owner and leading attorney behind Your Home Legal. And we're going to talk about Your Home Legal because it's really an interesting twist on what we think about in terms of real estate and attorneys. So Becca is licensed in California, Virginia, and DC. And when she is not shaking up the real estate market, she spends time painting and being a great mom to her adorable daughter, Nora, who is such a gem. And we love seeing her in Ladies Who Leverage. So welcome, Rebecca. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Kelly. I'm great today. Thank you. How are you?
Yay. I'm good, thank you. So I said that your company's name is Your Home Legal and that you are an attorney. And some people think about real estate more in terms of, especially as an attorney, more in terms of dealing with things when people die, right? Maybe their estates or probate or any of those types of things. But you have a different twist on how you practice law in terms of real estate. So talk to us about your practice.
Sure. So in about half of the states in the US, attorneys are involved in the real estate process, whether they are at the table when you're closing or whether you hire them directly as the buyer or the seller. About half of the states do that. In California, there are very few attorneys involved in the process at all. The title and escrow companies are the lead transactional part of the process. But most people don't hire an attorney. And if they do, it's generally because they're coming from the East Coast. So I moved to California in 2017 and realized pretty quickly that things are a little different out here.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of the 3 or so years before I started this law firm, there was always something in the back of my head that said something has to change here, because I would see the issues after they were problems.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the problems that I was seeing were things that could be addressed during the contract process or even before then. And it's because nobody's getting the legal help that they need during that process that you have to deal with it on the fallout side. And it's generally significantly more expensive.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people think about attorneys as a reactionary thing, right? As opposed to being proactive. And what I get from you is that what you want to do is to help people to be proactive so that they don't have to call you on the back end to try to undo what has already been done. So how is that different, Rebecca, in terms of getting people their mindset around, well, why do I need Rebecca? If I'm going to go buy a house, I need a real estate broker. I need, my realtor. Why do I need Rebecca?
Because you're not buying a car. You're not buying a cup of coffee, right? You're making probably the most expensive investment that you'll ever make in your entire life. And you're relying on people who, while they have a lot of knowledge about what they do, cannot advise you on what your legal rights are.
Mm-hmm.
Or look at you, because it's not just buying a piece of property, right? Or you're not just selling a piece of property. Your entire story matters to this particular transaction. And most people that you'll deal with during that process aren't trained to identify the problems or coach you through them.
Right. And are they even supposed to?
No, and that's the other thing, is that your real estate agent is a salesperson. They're there to help buy a property or to sell the piece of property. They're really not there for the holistic picture.
Mm-hmm.
And they might say, oh, this might be a thing. This might be something that you want to look at, but they can't tell you how to address it. They can say, well, this is what I've seen in the past. And you might rely on that. It might work out, but it might not.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I mean, the short answer is no. They're really not qualified to give you the answer. But they also need to be able to know who to ask when the question does come up. which is
Right.
what I've been working on, is reaching out to the real estate agents to say, listen, there are people in our community that are there to help you so that you don't have to answer the question.
Right. Absolutely. I think that that's an important part of it because I think most people just lack knowledge around the issue. When we go to buy a house. I mean, even, as an attorney, we know that when you go sign those papers, there's like stacks and stacks of papers with tons of legal experts in there, right?
Well,
And
I wish for the people that are listening today could see what I'm showing Kelly.
right,
I'm showing
inches.
it's a 2-inch ring binder of double-sided paper, and this
Yeah,
is what a typical buyer will receive during the process. Is about six to 800 pieces of paper.
yeah.
It
And
might
who
not actually be
understands it?
right, and it's written by attorneys for attorneys.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
just the way it is. But most buyers on average, and this doesn't include, if you're in an HOA, tack on an extra 300 pages just for all of those documents. Most people are going to get, upwards of 1,000 pieces of paper that will come across their computer because that's generally how they're going to get it.
Right.
And not everybody reads it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that people don't understand, and we sign a lot of papers that have a lot of obligations, right? That people don't understand. So I think that's a really unique area that you have decided to go into, and I think it's important for people to know because they're always going to want to know, well, what is the benefit to me of having that? Now, is this an area of law that you from the time that you started practicing that you were in, or this is something new?
This has sort of progressed over the last 10 years or so. I started my career at the bottom of the legal market.
Mm-hmm.
So after the financial crash in 2008, I graduated in 2009, went from Boston to DC, and there were virtually no jobs. I worked in doc review, working on some pretty heavy litigation. And while it was at the time one of the worst experiences of my professional life, that experience actually played a pretty significant role in what happened later when I was doing actual litigation at a firm. But the real estate came in after a friend of mine from law school called and said she needed some help doing real estate closings. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
I'm sorry, a real estate closing? But at this point, I had been working in doing doc review for about a year. And I said, I'll file stuff at this point because it was just my brain hurt, my eyes hurt. It was not satisfying. It was definitely not the reason why I went to law school. So I went over across the river. I was working in DC at the time and moved over to Alexandria, Virginia, which is in Northern Virginia, just outside DC. And she showed me how to do a real estate closing. And it was just like, ooh, this is exciting. This is interesting. This is new.
Right.
And it was so funny because my very first class in law school was property. And I remember opening my book and it was this old English case. And I literally didn't understand the words that were on the page. And I started crying and I called my dad and I said, Dad, I think I made a terrible decision. I don't think I should be here. And my dad and his infinite wisdom, he's like, get over it. Just read it, get through it. You'll figure it out.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's what happened. But it's just funny that my path has led me to property when property was my first class. And I cried through the whole class.
Yeah. And everything happens for a reason because you were talking about doc review. And for our listeners, their lawyers do what is called document review. So when cases have a significant number of documents, they send them out to third parties and lawyers actually go through the documents and mark them for different things. I won't get into all the technicalities of it, but it can be very mind numbing. And I did it for a while. When I was transitioning between having my own firm and then going back to working for a firm. But like you said, having done that document review was so enlightening to me because I then had massive cases that had tens of thousands of documents that having gone through the document review process helped me because it was a skill set. and also being able to talk to third parties about how to do what we do. So, sometimes we think that we end up in these spaces or we end up doing things and we're just like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. Why am I doing this? But I believe that everything happens for a reason. And I also believe that you're always gaining skills no matter where you are, right? And so it will take you somewhere. And in that moment, you may not realize it, but it always is adding to you, right? It's always adding value to you. So practicing law, was that a dream, a goal, or just like me, a whim?
This is a since I was probably 5 or 6 years old.
Oh, wow. Tell me about
I
that.
think pretty early. Well, and I don't know if this is, like when you listen to your parents and they tell you that you're going to be something or do something. I argued, I argued with my parents about literally everything, everything. And my mom always said, "You're going to be a lawyer one day. You're going to be a lawyer one day." And I didn't know what that mean. I didn't know what that meant at 5.
Hmm.
But it was always something that, kind of was instilled in me. I don't come from a family of attorneys. My folks were blue collar family. My dad was a plumber. My mom was a secretary at a hospital. They didn't graduate from college. First one to
Hmm.
go to college, first one to go to law school. So I didn't, it's not like I came from this family of, high performing professionals.
Right.
My family they were high performing in their roles, but this was outside of the scope of like anything I had ever been exposed to. Um, but it was always something in the back of my mind, like I'm going to be a lawyer one day. I don't know what that means. I'm going to be a lawyer one day.
Hmm.
But it sort of matured over time. I did a lot of political science things, which turned into maybe wanting to go into policy. Then it turned into maybe wanting to go into criminal law, then family law. And the family law was interesting. That was based on, the personal side of things after my parents were divorced.
Hmm.
But it always sort of was turning into something else as I was being exposed to more and more things.
Yeah. And I'm always fascinated when people say that they were the first in their family, for example, to graduate from high school or to go to college. So having a mom who's a secretary and a dad who's a plumber and not seeing them being in higher education, what caused you or what pushed you or motivated you, whatever word you want to use, to actually say, I am going to be the first and I'm going to go to college and I'm going to end up going to law school? What was that about you?
I don't know. I don't think it was not in our vocabulary to be anything but that. Education was always very highly valued in my family. Um, my family always said, "You're going to go to college. You're going to do something, whatever it is. It's your choice, but you're going to do something." And for them, that meant you're going to college.
Hmm.
For me, it wasn't going to be an immediate thing. I have 3 younger sisters, and as the oldest, I felt some I don't know, some responsibility for them and being able to give them the opportunities, because there are 4 kids, and it was 4 kids in 5 years. So, it was very quick. I was going to enlist in the military.
Mm.
I was in the process in 2000. I graduated high school in 2002. Um, the fall of 2001, I was enlisting in the Air Force. I had taken the ASVAB. I had done the interview. All of the things that you have to do in order to enlist in the military. And then 9/11 happened.
Hmm.
So that was the start of my senior year of high school. 9/11 happened. And then two or 3 days after 9/11, my grandparents showed up. These are my dad's parents, showed up at the house and said, "You're not enlisting. We're
Mm.
not going to allow it. We will pay for you to go to any state school that you get into." And that was the end of it.
Hmm. Yeah, funny how things happen, right?
It's understatement of the year, right? So like, I'm very fortunate that I had that opportunity.
Uh-huh.
I can't imagine what my life would have been like had I enlisted in the Air Force and, gone through the 2002 through, 2000 and not, now
Right.
deployments through the military.
Yeah.
Um, but I had intended to join and then go through their officer candidate school and go to law school, do that, but do it through the military.
Right. Right. And a lot of people do that, right? They go to the military. I remember when I was in high school, I took the ASVAB, and the Air Force, they took me out to eat because I had done so well. And I was thinking of going into the Air Force. I don't know why I ended up not going, but they would call me all the time about, going, and you can be an officer and you can do all the, be an officer candidate school. So it's really interesting how our paths take us. And, sometimes we think that we're going down one road and we end up going down another road, but it still takes us to where we intended to go in the first place, right?
Right.
And so, like in my new book, I talk about that, about taking the detour, right? Because we've been led to believe, especially when we're younger, that life is linear, right? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Well, sometimes that's not the path, right? The path takes you on a circular route, and sometimes it takes you on a detour. So, one of the other things that I love about you is that you are, like me, left brain, right brain, in the sense about your painting, that you're always painting, and that's very artistic, which, for lawyers, they think that we're just really logical, rational, beings, like all of that. So how did you get into all of this with painting?
I've always had sort of an artsy background. I always loved it. I loved coloring and painting and drawing. I never was very good at it. I took classes all through school just because I enjoyed doing it. I started playing piano when I was 5. Again, not very good at it, but I also wasn't that disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take my studies very seriously as far as that went. I'm sure I could have been better, but you know what? It was fun. I enjoyed it. Played through junior high school, I think. It was nice because my grandmother was my teacher for a long time.
Oh.
Um, but the most recent the painting the most recent in painting started last fall with COVID, and I started these subscription boxes from a company out of Missouri, and every month they send you 4 watercolor projects, and then she leads you through guided painting, and I've really enjoyed it. Um, it's watercolor paint, and I think it's funny that you brought up the left brain, right brain thing, and like wanting to fit everything in a box.
Mm-hmm.
With the watercolor painting, water does whatever the hell it wants. And for me, it took me a long time to get over that. Like, not everything is going to look exactly the way that you imagine it in your head, and you just kind of have to go with it.
Yeah.
Um, so the watercolor has sort of made me a little not only looser with painting, but like looser in my expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's a bad thing, but you just kind of have to go with the flow with things.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying it. It's one of the ways that I can unwind. It's one of the ways I can spend time with my daughter. She's extraordinarily artistic.
Mm.
And it's an opportunity for us to sit down and actually spend some time together doing something that we both really enjoy. But I find that the more I paint, the more creative I feel in work,
Mm-hmm.
which that was not something I intended to do. It's just kind of an unexpected consequence.
A happy consequence.
Happy consequence.
Yeah.
But it's something that I really have enjoyed doing.
And so when you talk about going with the flow, I'm going to take you back for a second,
Okay.
because talking about going with the flow and things not being as you expected, we talk about Your Home Legal, which is your law firm, but that's a recent thing, right? You having your own law firm. Tell us how you got to become the owner and the managing member of Your Home Legal, because you were with another firm prior to that.
I was. So I moved here. I moved to California in 2017 and started working because I didn't want to. And this is another thing. I didn't want to take the California bar. Taking the Virginia bar exam was traumatic, to say the very least.
Yeah.
It's not something that I talk about a lot, but it took me 3 times to pass the Virginia bar
Mm.
exam. Um, you know, it is what it is, but I passed it. I wasn't going to give up. It was never an
Right.
option of like, well, this is not what I'm going to do. I'm obviously not cut out for this because I can't pass this freaking test. You get the help you need and you get through it. That's what I did. I operated under that mentality a little bit with California. I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put myself through that stress. But I got a job working at an escrow company here. And this is sort of where the foundation for Your Home Legal started. Is I practiced law in Virginia. I ran the settlement department. I ended up running the settlement department at this law firm and owned a title company. So I was used to attorneys being involved in the process. I'm the attorney for that transaction. And I would deal with other attorneys if it was split. I come to California, and I remember my first day on the job, my boss says, okay, review this preliminary title report. And this is just basically it's a document that gives the brief history of the property. It tells you what the taxes are, what the liens are, what the easements are, the legal description, what the vesting is, who owns it. She says, go ahead and review this and then send it over to this person and they'll prepare the grant deed. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean they're going to prepare the grant deed? And I said, is this person an attorney? And she says, no. And I said, then why is she preparing the grant deed? In Virginia, there are only two people that can prepare grant deeds, an attorney or the homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I don't understand. What do you mean? And she said, this is how we do it here. And, like my brain's like, that's not how we do it here.
That's not how this goes.
That's not how this goes. So that sort of started the process. And then what started happening more is I'm interfacing more with these clients, and they have like 9,000 questions. Like these are basic questions about the process, but nobody's giving them these answers. Mm-hmm. One of the most prevalent was, how do we hold title? And they get this 1-page form from, and this is not just the escrow company that I was working at. Any escrow company will send a 1-pager that says, these are the different ways that you can hold title, and then a check the box form. But this was something that they would call all the time for. Well, what should I do? I can't give you advice. I'm not your attorney.
Right.
And nobody had the attorney to call to say, this is how we go through and have that analysis. So that sort of sets things up, right? Having all these conversations. And then in California, a notary will sit across the table from you when you're signing your loan documents. They cannot answer questions about your loan package. They're there just to have you sign and stamp, and stamp. So those were the 3 really big areas where I was just like, oh, attorneys really need to be involved. Okay, so fast forward, I moved on from that escrow company and joined with a law firm here in San Diego, real estate, working probably 50%, 60% in litigation. So doing landlord tenant work and some other litigation revolving around real estate and some transactional work. And we did a lot of work even through COVID. So I joined in at the end of 2019, and then about 6 months later, COVID happened. We were able to get through a good chunk of that. But towards October, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's also an attorney, buying her first home. And she had the same 9,000 questions that I got from everybody that called in escrow. And at the end of the call, she says, how come I didn't know you did this? So what do you mean? You literally called me because you knew that I did this. And she's like, no. Why don't I know why doesn't everybody know that you do this? And I said, I don't know. And that was like the hot poker moment, like hot poker in your brain that says, oh, you need to do something, and you need to do something fast.
Right.
So I called, we were in a law firm coaching program. I texted my CEO. We have fractional CEO. I texted her and I said, I'm having a crisis, need to chat. We have this conversation. She says, put together a business plan, send it to me. We'll talk about it on Monday. So that's what I did. I spent the weekend putting together a business plan on starting a brand new law firm in a practice area that almost nobody in California practices, certainly not the way that I want to practice it. And then I don't want to say that's the rest is history, but that's sort of what happened. Between the time I had this idea and told my partner and exited the firm, it was about 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was really fast.
So there are lots of lessons in what you just said, right? So there are lots of lessons about listening, right? So listening to what people were asking you and then identifying that there is a need. So that's one of the lessons. Also, reaching out to someone, when you said you reached out to the fractional CEO, because you're like, listen, I'm hearing these things. There's something. I need someone to guide me, right? So not being afraid to ask questions. And then also just doing it, right? Even if you're scared, to just do it, right? Do it scared. And so just being able to go out and take that leap, because listen, running a law firm is not easy.
Oh
Having your own
no.
law firm, it's what I resisted it for a long time because I wanted to practice law. I was a trial lawyer. I was like, I want to practice law. I don't want to practice law and run a business. That's two jobs. I didn't want to have two jobs. So, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as the owner of a law firm, what is the most challenging thing that you find, especially being the mom of a little girl who wants lots of attention?
That's a really good question. Honestly, because I'm all about hiring everybody, hire everybody that you can to help you. Because I just started reading Who Not What,
Oh, I haven't heard
Who
of that.
Not How. I can't remember exactly the title, but it's like you need to identify the people in your life that can help you reach your goals. And I'm all about hiring anything that I physically can't do myself, which is generally limited to eating and sleeping. I will hire somebody else to do it. And starting a brand new law firm, I'm getting frustrated with myself that the cash flow as it stands right now doesn't support me hiring everybody under the sun, because
Right.
that's what I want to do. I want to be able to continue to build the model, build the firm, and do all of the things, but I need a team behind me or a team next to me. It's not behind me. I need a team next to me in order to get there. And I made some strategic decisions to say, these are the absolute A plus people that I 100% need out the gate. And that was the fractional CEO that I mentioned earlier. That company, I engaged them immediately. And I said, I cannot do this without your support.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one. And that's not, that is a pretty hefty bill every month, but I'm okay paying it.
Uh-huh.
And the second was a bookkeeper,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm those two people are instrumental, whether it's those specific people, but those two pieces of my plan are absolutely essential. And
Right.
then now it's just getting the support people
Yeah.
in
And
line.
we mentioned fractional CEO, so I like to always make sure people understand what we're talking about. So what does it mean? So somebody may say, what does she mean she has a fractional CEO on her team? Isn't she the CEO of her company?
Well, yes, I am. But the fractional CEO, for lack of a better word, it's a business coach.
Okay.
But the way that this law firm coaching program that I'm in is that they have different levels of support. Fractional CEO helping you, at my level, hustle, market, sell. Right. The second level is their fractional CEO and COO services. Their COO services really help you get your shop in order with your policies and procedures and like long-term strategic planning. Then you get the CFO services where they're really all about the financial controls in your law firm. So as you grow your business, you're going to grow into and have different needs. So, and fractional just means outside. I don't hire the person that I work with directly. I hire this company and this is my assigned person.
Okay.
So that's what the fractional is. They're outside third party services that help act as, they don't have any authority over my business. They basically are my sounding board.
Yeah, like an advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and for our listeners, those are things that you can have in any type of business. There are fractional CEOs, CFOs, COOs all over the place. So that's something I like to give different resources. So I think that that's something that people should look into. And then also, just thinking about you, Rebecca, as an attorney, you're brilliant, right? And you've gone to school many, many years to become an attorney. But even though we are smart people, we all still need help, right? And
It's
we
not
all
just
still need people.
right. And it's not just, we don't just need help. I went to law school to be a lawyer. I
Right.
did not go to law school to be a business owner. And not all of this stuff comes naturally.
That's right.
Right. And the people that I work with know how to run a business. The people that I work with know how to handle my finances so that I know what my numbers are every single month. Like these are things that I don't have this, like I have a basic working knowledge of it so that we can have an informed conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not where my area of expertise is. That's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to bring them in so that I know and my business is running the way that it should be.
Absolutely. If you had to give a new entrepreneur one piece of advice, what would it be?
Just freaking do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Take action and know that everything is a test.
Yeah. Absolutely. So this has been an awesome conversation, Rebecca Larson. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I get the opportunity and have had the opportunity over the last year to get to know you in Ladies Who Leverage, which has been just a treat for me, in getting to know all the women in there and watching you on your journeys and, you know, all of the twists and turns that we're taking and the detours. So if someone wants to learn more about Your Home Legal and to connect with you, how can they do that?
Sure. First, they can call our office. The phone number is 1-888-691-3077. You can find us on all of the social medias at Your Home Legal, and then our website, which is www.yourhomelegal.com.
And make sure that you check her out on TikTok and that you follow her, and also on Instagram. She is awesome on all of those platforms. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening to us today. If you want to get in touch with Rebecca, want to learn more about why it is so very important for you to have your own attorney when you are purchasing a home, as Rebecca said, that is a major investment and one not to be taken lightly. And if you want to hang out with women like Rebecca and me in our Ladies Who Leverage global community, you can hang out with us. Come to lwlinvestor.com to learn more, and stay tuned, subscribe so that you never ever miss an episode of Ladies Who Leverage podcast. And bye for now. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. This podcast is brought to you by Lady Lawyer Media. If you're a badass woman who's ready to take action to live life unapologetically AF, then you need to join our global community on Facebook, Ladies Who Leverage. And remember to subscribe to our podcast. And until next time, let's collabosource, strategize, and monetize.